Hello, everybody. It's PsyFerret, and it is time for another PsyBreaks. As always, PsyBreaks is just what I've been watching, reading, doing when I'm not at work and streaming. So, let's talk about it. I mean, this last couple weeks have been some Archer, some Seven Deadly Sins, and last week tonight in terms of what I've been watching. And I finally got around to reading the next volume of Deadly Class, Volume 3. I've been a little bit under the weather, so I've been doing a lot more sleeping, but I've been feeling a lot better lately. So streams are going to be a little bit longer, and we're going to have more. I'll have actually watched more stuff and read more books and such to talk about more as time goes on. But why don't I tell you more about what I've been watching? First up, Archer. Archer is still on FXX, which I watched on via Xfinity. I still actually like as time progressed, the series actually or like the season 11 kind of appealed to me more. Like the first couple episodes were a little rocky in certain ways, but as we just had the season finale, episode 8 for Archer this week, it's actually like a really good ending. I actually really enjoyed it. It kind of shows off the selflessness that is Archer while also showing off his stupidity, and it asks a major question of from the main character, because we watched as everyone else was deteriorating into their worst self. All the other characters going back to their bad habits. He asked something along the lines of, have you considered that you guys are just using me as an excuse to be your worst selves rather than, just acknowledging that you're all horrible people? Which is a harsh sentence. But at the same time, it's like, they were supposedly doing really well without him, and now that he's back, they all just disintegrated into horrible people. Like, it was a brain mind explosion. It was a great question, and I was like, I had never even considered such a notion until he asked it. Overall, I did actually really like this season of Archer. It was a good season. I did enjoy it. I mean, it was a little rocky at first for me, but honestly, I would say it is definitely worth a watch. So the next thing I've been watching, mostly just because apparently I'm still on a huge anime binge, or I don't even know what I'm doing. Don't even know. And that is the Seven Deadly Sins, which is a Netflix only original series. I've read the comic book, or at least some of the comic book, a while ago. Or the manga, sorry. I read some of the manga. I realized I used the wrong word there, sorry. But the anime is actually pretty enjoyable to its own in its own right. I mean, it is very tropey. It is very like nothing in it seems really like, oh, what a plot twist, or oh, that was different, or oh, it's a tropey anime that's kind of fun, and I'm like, oh, I need something that mindless, cool. Tropey anime is here to stay, and yeah, that's the Seven Deadly Sins. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's tropey. Like, it's a little off base on some of its humor, and like one of the main characters constantly groping the other is kind of weird, but at the same time, like, it's weirdly charming in a horrible way. It's weird. It's kind of hard to it's weird. That's really all I can say about it. It's weird and yet kind of funny and horrifying at the same time. Like, when you really think about it, you're like, oh, this is actually really bad. But at the same time, it's like, okay, sure. So I mean, it's a good show. It's a good time. I recommend it. Last week tonight was John Oliver on HBO. I've been watching it on my cable box from Xfinity, but I will also say it's on HBO Max. And probably one of the most important parts is that John Oliver does include his mains topic of the week on YouTube typically. However, it doesn't go over to like the weekly recap or some of his jokes. But I honestly find the number one reason I think I like this show the most is it's not just comedy, it's informative with sources. And that's a major deal. Like, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of late night shows that are like, ha ha ha, look at this like late clip, or ha ha ha, look at this, horrible thing. And we're trying to make light of a situation that's just awful. And it just, And like, he does that, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, you just kind of sit here and go, the fact that he's willing to present, one, it's not always a topic about, you know, just what happened in the news this week. Like, he'll go into things like 401ks or let's see, 401ks is the one I remembered the most. The next one, I remember him talking about flood insurance. It was also an interesting episode. Like, the postal services, he's one of the big ones who talked about the postal services this last year. I mean, he just goes into a variety of topics, and the most important part, I feel, and this is probably the biggest difference, I'm not going to sit here and say he doesn't have an agenda. Like, you can tell he has a much more liberal bias, but he provides citations, right? This is not just his opinion and him spouting out nonsense. He presents citations, and that's kind of a big deal. That is a huge deal. Like, you can't sit here and say, oh, I believe this, right? He goes, yeah, I believe this, but this is, you know, how the world is actually going in this case as well. We are dropping millions upon millions of dollars on this, or this is where, you know, a lot of people get medicine from the post office. So to start defunding that, it would be a really big deal. Or this particular act, and I'm just remembering the post office off the top of my head, is like, hey, this particular act is when we actually saw the post office going from being having a positive balance to being so far in a negative that like any other company would sink. And it's because Congress presented, and it was a year after the Congress presented this act. Like, I wonder if that might have been involved somehow. Like, it's easier to get the when you hear the citations and you hear the sentences with observable facts. And I think that's going to be an important detail, is that observable facts with his show and those reports and those studies, and like, he doesn't actually do the journalism, right? He's actually acknowledged in, I think he had an episode on journalism specifically, where he's like, I'm not a journalist. He uses the information from the Associated Press or other journalistic sources and uses that information to then present his topic. He's collecting the research. He's not actually doing the research himself. A good way to kind of think about it is he's a literary. I know for me, when I was in college, we talked about the difference between doing the experimental study and actually gathering the literature. He's a literature gatherer. He's not doing the experimental studies. He's not doing the observation cases. He's not doing anything like that. His team and his writers and him, he does a literature review. But here's the thing, the literature review, and especially when presented in a palpable way, is hugely important, because I will never be an expert on flood insurance or 401ks or the post office. And I doubt he's even close to that either. However, him talking about it with the literature review in a way that's understandable for the common person makes a huge difference. And I do think this is something that most people can genuinely understand. This is not something that's like a political scientist or something like that. I like his content and I like his show because I don't feel dumb, and I walk away feeling smarter. And sure, I mean, it is a little depressing at times, but then again, with 2020, the entire world is depressing. So it's kind of hard to go, oh, and like, he makes fun of himself and makes fun of his own bits at times too. So it's one of those like, okay, so he's enjoyable. I find his humor enjoyable. I will acknowledge that he is very British. He is very much a British person, and that British humor is very much in place. So if you have no knowledge or appreciation for British humor, this may be a little difficult for you. But otherwise, it's great. So good. All right. The last thing, this is not so much TV, but rather some reading I did. I actually have reread Deadly Class Volume 3. And this one was actually a lot better than I remembered. It was a lot more intriguing. Granted, this Volume 3 picks up almost immediately where Volume 2 left off. So, like, you're dived right in. And I think that if memory serves correctly, that's how all the volumes are. So you pretty much go from story to story to story to story with Deadly Class. But one of the things I will say that's really enjoyable is the fact that this particular story arc was good because it wasn't just focused on Marcus, the main character, but also brought in his girlfriend, Maria, and really emphasized her and grew her. And it also brought in other characters that I kind of like, you know that they're there, but you kind of don't see them in the limelight very much. So like Willie and Saya, for example, like Saya is a main character and you know it, but she's still kind of off in the shadows, but she's gotten a lot more attention in this one. Willie is a main character. He's gotten a lot more attention. Like he is actually a major conflict in certain cases. And Maria is a major conflict. And I mean, it's just, you see a lot more of the major conflicts and you see where the stakes actually are. And some of the questions that, you know, the character themselves starts to ask, you know, get answered really quickly as well near the end. And I'm excited to reread Diddly Class Volume 4. So, yeah. I really like it. I really enjoy it. It's not PG at all. It is definitely more on the rated R side. But yeah, it's a really good show, or a really good comic book. And that's it for my PsyBreaks here. So yeah, I appreciate you all stopping by and watching this. Let me know if you have anything you think I should read or watch, or, you know, should get to be familiar with in some way that I could enjoy on my time off. I do appreciate you all stopping by. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of the day it is for you. And I will catch you all next time on stream. I am again live on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays. And we will be doing PsyBreaks on the 1st and 3rd Mondays of the month. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.